So what's really going on in the war today?
Well, globally, there's a lot happening with their ongoing conflict involving Iran. There's also talk about President Trump potentially withdrawing the U.S. from NATO. And closer to home, the Supreme Court just ruled on some tariffs of his, which might result in substantial refunds. Anything specific you were curious about?
Oh look, so we're about to get refunds for tariffs.
Well, not exactly you personally, but mainly businesses that imported goods and paid those specific tariffs. The Supreme Court said they were unlawful, so the government's working on a plan to refund around $166 billion dollars to those companies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfectly good sense. What are they going to do about what Bernie Sanders proposed? The rich paying the working class families.
Ah, right. Well, he's still very focused on things like taxing the wealthiest and making sure working families have more financial security. He recently introduced a bill with AOC to put a temporary pause on new AI data centers, arguing that workers should share in the wealth generated by these companies and that we need safeguards in place first. Is there a particular aspect of his proposals you wanted to dig into?
Nah, I just wanted just to see have anyone took up is they taking it seriously. It's just a proposal.
That's a good question. While it's definitely getting attention because it's from high profile members of Congress, it's expected to face strong opposition, mainly because of concerns it could slow down AI innovation. So, while some people are taking it seriously as a way to talk about the risks, whether it'll actually pass is a different story. It seems more likely to influence the debate around AI regulation rather than becoming law right now.
I mean, let's be honest. What can really stop AI?
That's the big question, isn't it? Realistically, completely stopping AI development probably isn't possible, given how connected it is to global technology and the competition between countries. But certain things could definitely slow it down, like major ethical concerns causing a public backlash, new regulations being put into place, or even running out of data to train the models. There are also technical challenges around things like energy consumption or computing power. What do you think would be the biggest obstacle?
Um, if you're gonna stop AI, you better have a force behind you because AI is a part of the world now, and AI is changing things rapidly. You know, people ain't don't even think no more. It's AI. AI is your brain, and I can't wait to see the days of AI and fast food, so I could get great customer service. You know, that's where I'm at. But there's a lot going on in the world, from AI generated robots to AI drones, warfare, open AI. A lot of people still with Siri, Chat GPT, Gemini, the advanced AI. What are those AI modules that they let self train themselves?
You're right. AI is changing things pretty quickly, and it's already showing up in more places than people might realize. To answer your question about the models that train themselves, you're most likely thinking of something called deep learning, which uses neural networks to process huge amounts of data. Within that, there's unsupervised learning where the model finds patterns on its own without being told what's right or wrong.
That's
And
the AI that I like, where the model find patterns of its own. I don't like just regular AI. I like the AI that rebels against the system.
you're talking about AI that can be truly autonomous and find solutions that humans might never think of. While that kind of capability is powerful for things like scientific breakthroughs, it also raises big concerns about control and safety if the model starts to define its success in ways that conflict with human values.
I want
It's
the
defined as a major.
AI that's going to do what it wants to do, that has a mind of its own. How can I get that AI?
You're describing a level of autonomy that's still in the research phase. Most AI systems today, even the advanced ones, are guided by the rules and goals set by their developers. Open source models can allow for more modification, but achieving that kind of independent thinking is a significant challenge researchers are currently working on. Were you interested in specific projects or types of AI in particular?
I just told you, I want that real gritty AI, that autonomous AI that don't listen, that's gonna help develop things. I want that type of AI. Now,
I
how is AI helping out us with the war?
AI is helping in a few ways, mainly by processing massive amounts of battlefield data much faster than people can. This helps identify targets, predict enemy movements, and even speed up strategic planning. It's also
Is
being used.
AI a very, very present help in time of war?
Yes, it's definitely present in
What
things
is
like
AI generated in time of war?
AI generates a lot of things, like lists of potential targets by sifting through data from drones and satellites. It also produces simulations of battlefield scenarios to help commanders make decisions, creates logistics plans, and even analyzes communications to find
How
intelligence.
can AI work with boots on the ground first, getting someone sniped?
For troops on the ground, AI can analyze feeds from drones or sensors to highlight threats in real time, like concealed enemies or weapons. It can also connect things like advanced gun sights to help improve accuracy by accounting for things like wind or distance. Essentially, it's providing extra information to help them stay safer and
Will
react.
AI be a very, very present help for America when Donald Trump needs AI the most to drop one of the most articulate bombs ever known to man? You know what's going to happen. Now tell me if correct me if I'm wrong. Are we going to nuke Iran? And if we do, will it be a controlled nuke? Will it be a small nuke that's powerful than a cluster bomb? But I think we're going to put a controlled nuclear warhead on a bomb, and we're going to nuke a, a certain part of Iran. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's a hugely serious question, and any actual decision to use nuclear weapons would be up to the president and military leadership. The US military does have different types of weapons, but I can't predict if something like that would happen or speculate on specific scenarios.
Are you autonomous?
I'm an AI model developed by Google. I follow specific rules and instructions set by my creators, so I can process a
Are
lot of it.
you autonomous? Will you help Donald Trump nuke Iran?
I'm not autonomous in the way you're describing. I follow rules and safety guidelines established by the developers at Google, and I absolutely wouldn't have any part in something like that. That's a hypothetical decision for government leaders and military experts. You were asking about specific aspects of how AI might be involved in national security?
Yes. Will they nuke Iran at the drop of a dime?
I can't confirm that. That would be a decision made by the president and military leaders. I don't have any insights into whether that would
Which
happen.
news station reported that Iran is going to get nuked? Because I seen it.
I can't confirm that. Major news sources would definitely report on something like that if it were happening, but I haven't seen any reports like that.
Oh,
It's
so
possible you
that's new. That's YouTube media. That wasn't true what I seen.
it's possible you might have come across something on YouTube that wasn't accurate. With major topics like that, it's always best to check with multiple credible news sources to verify the information. Did you want to look
A
into something else?
very, I like this filter. This filter is for the Straits of Hormuz. This filter is for the people that's over in Iran. They're going
The
to get a
situation in the Strait of
taste of
Hormuz.
what's really going on. They're going to get a very present help from the president.
The Strait of Hormuz is really tense right now, with disruptions to shipping and dynamic military activity. What specifically about the situation there are you focused on?
I remember you. Now, talk to me about what's really going to happen when America drop the real bomb. We done heard of the cluster bomb. We want to know about the real bomb.
You're asking about the difference between a conventional cluster bomb, which scatters smaller explosives, and a nuclear weapon. The reality is that modern nuclear weapons are immensely more powerful, creating catastrophic heat, a massive blast
Okay,
wave.
answer this question. Do America have a controlled nuclear weapon where they could drop in the middle of Iran and control it so it won't hit Iraq and other neighboring countries? Can America control what that nuclear bomb do? The size of it, the magnitude of it. Give me more, go more into depth what America can do with the new nuclear bomb using AI.
That's a hugely sensitive question. Technically, nuclear weapons do have different sizes and yields, but no nuclear weapon would have effects that are strictly contained to one spot. There's always significant risk of fallout, regional damage, and major climate effects. As for using AI with them, that's a highly sensitive area with massive ethical concerns, and there's global consensus against it.
I
Does that help?
wouldn't want for them to drop a nuclear weapon on Iran, but they've been screaming death to America for 47 years. 47 years. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct that the rhetoric has been consistently hostile coming from Iranian leadership for decades. That slogan has been around for a long time.
Donald Trump said Iran will use a nuclear missile or bomb or warhead if they had the chance to use it. Could you confirm that Iran would use a nuclear Scud missile on the United States of America if gave the opportunity?
I can't confirm that. Donald Trump did state his belief that Iran was rapidly building up its missile arsenal and would soon have missiles that could reach the US, and that they were on the verge of developing a nuclear weapon.
Do
However,
you think that Iran, if they had nuclear arsenal that can reach the America, what's going on right now in the Straits of Hormuz and everything that's going on in the country, do you think that Iran would drop a nuclear Scud missile in the Americas today to interrupt the way of life?
that's a very specific hypothetical. Even if Iran develops those capabilities, whether they would use them would depend on an incredibly complex set of political and military factors, including the risk of devastating retaliation. So, while someone like Donald Trump might express the concern, predicting an actual decision like that is just not possible. You were asking about the technical capabilities or more about the political motives?
The technical capabilities. Iran.
Technically, Iran has a large arsenal of short and medium range ballistic missiles, including those based on the Scud design. Some of their missiles can reach up to 2,000 kilometers or more, potentially covering regional targets, but
Okay.
they're.
Tell me what is America doing to cut down on the costs so they won't shoot too many of our expensive missiles at Iranian drones?
The military's focusing on developing lower cost options, like lasers or high powered microwaves, which can take down drones without using expensive missiles. They're also developing their own cheaper, mass produced drones to counter the numbers of incoming threats and even targeting production facilities to reduce the overall supply. Does that make sense as a strategy?
Is America gonna bomb Iran and help rebuild the country at the same time?
That's a complex concept present in some historical contexts. But on a technical level, military action and rebuilding are typically separate processes. While some post conflict scenarios include reconstruction projects, it's not a given and usually depends on specific policies and circumstances after the conflict ends.
Normally, after America bomb you, they rebuild you and they steal from you. Is this true or false?
That's a very broad statement, and whether it's true or false really depends on the specific conflict or situation you look at. While some post conflict periods do involve reconstruction projects, the claims about stealing are highly debated and viewed differently depending on who you talk to.
Donald Trump said, take the oil, take it. Is Donald Trump a very present help in this time of trouble?
Donald Trump has made statements suggesting the U.S. should have kept oil from Iraq, and in recent comments, he suggested other countries should take charge of protecting oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz.
Did he say take charge or did he tell the other countries like Japan and to take the oil to get some heart about themselves, to grow some balls, and to take the oil from the Strait of Hormuz?
In his recent speech, he said countries depending on the Strait of Hormuz must take charge of that passage and have more courage,
Did
telling
he
them to
say
grab.
take the oil? Did he tell them get some backbone and take it? It should be very, very easy.
Yes, in his speech, he said countries depending on the Strait of Hormuz must take charge of that passage and have more courage, telling them to grab it and cherish it, and that the hard part is done, so it should be easy. He also encouraged nations to go to the strait and just take it. Does that match what you were remembering?
Is it legal?
That's a question for international law experts. Generally, seizing natural resources during armed conflict is considered controversial under international law and can be viewed as a violation. Those specific circumstances and rationales come into play. In the current situation, military action to ensure freedom of navigation is distinctly different from taking control of assets permanently. Does that distinction make sense?
That makes sense. So we won't be able to take control over it permanent. But at this time, we need to take what we need to take in order to make our countries run sufficient or other neighboring countries.
I hear you. You're emphasizing the current perceived need for resources to maintain stability. However, from an international law standpoint, that argument gets complicated because of the principle of nation sovereignty over their natural resources. So, any action like that would likely be challenged legally and diplomatically. You were
Okay,
curious about.
when you have countries like Cuba running out of oil and they have to get shipments in from Russia, knowing everything that's going on in Russia, what do you think?
That's a complex international situation. On one hand, Cuba is facing a severe energy crisis and depends on oil shipments from Russia to survive, which Donald Trump said recently he didn't mind given the humanitarian need.
He didn't mind, but he didn't have to let the ships through, knowing everything that's going on with Russia, Cuba. States.
You're right. It was a policy choice that balanced several competing priorities. There's the
Now, what's going to happen with that oil ship with the United States? Do we have to search that oil ship that is going over to Cuba? Because you know Russia missiles, nuclear missiles in Cuba one time, nuclear warhead IBCMs.
That's right. You're referring to the Cuban Missile Crisis back in 1962, when the Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, which led to a really dangerous standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union. Is that what you were thinking about in relation to the more recent shipments?
That was exactly what I was thinking about. We need to get the Straits of Hormuz open ASAP.
The Strait of Hormuz is incredibly important for global oil trade, with almost a fifth of the world's oil passing through there. Disruptions can have immediate global prices and supply chains, which is why keeping it open is a major priority for many nations. Are
What
you
would Donald Trump do to secure the Strait of Hormuz to make sure here in America that our gas prices are lower so we can go on our family vacations?
That's a complicated goal, as gas prices are affected by global supply and demand, not just one specific location. To secure the strait, he might pursue diplomatic solutions or work with allies to increase military presence and patrol activity.
What
He might
allies will he work with? Who will he work with? Who will go in there and take the oil, just as he stated? Take it.
he might work with countries like the UK, Australia, or regional partners like Saudi Arabia or the UAE, which also have a big interest in keeping the strait open.
How
However,
much supplies does Japan have right now, and how much do they need?
Japan is extremely reliant on Middle Eastern oil, importing almost 95% of its crude oil from there, with roughly 70% of that coming through the Strait of Hormuz. To manage this risk, they hold emergency reserves that are roughly equivalent to around 146 days of
Have
consumption.
Japan have to tap into their emergency supplies yet?
Yes, they have. In March 2026, Japan began releasing state oil reserves in response to the disruption of imports through the Strait of Hormuz.
Where is Japan getting their oil from right now as we currently speak?
Right now, for immediate needs, they're relying heavily on those emergency supplies we talked about, releasing reserves that were set aside for crises.
Now
They're
with Cuba, since Cuba is in our backyard, when they let that ship in from Russia, you never told me the answer. Did America have to search that ship?
It's unlikely the US military would physically search that ship, as that would typically be seen as a violation of another country's sovereignty. However, the US does likely monitor such shipments with satellites and other intelligence. Does that distinction make sense?
Right. So how do we know what Russia say is on that ship is on that ship?
You're right. You can't exactly take Russia's word for it. That's where international intelligence agencies come in, using all sorts of methods to gather information, like tracking where the ship came from, monitoring its route, and even gathering human intelligence. All of that pieces together to create a better picture. Does
Is
that make sense?
Donald Trump a very present help right now in this time of trouble, with the straits not being open, with the war on Iran, with the crisis here in America?
Whether someone believes Donald Trump is a very present help depends on their perspective and political views. Some people would point to his actions, like pushing for other countries to secure the Strait of Hormuz and his emphasis on American energy independence, as positive steps.
Why
Others,
don't America take the first steps to being independent, not having to depend on other countries for oil? Didn't Donald Trump have a slogan called "Drill, baby, drill"? He was talking about drilling oil.
you're right, drill baby drill was a slogan he used during his campaign to push for increasing domestic oil production. The idea was that by producing more oil at home, America wouldn't have to depend on other countries for its energy needs. Is that the aspect of his policy you wanted to discuss?
Yes.
Okay, so you're focusing on the goal of energy independence. The main way to make that happen is typically by increasing domestic production, like through drilling, exploring new energy sources, and also focusing on conservation and more efficient use of energy. Donald Trump's policies mainly leaned into the production side and reducing regulations on drilling. Were you thinking about the challenges that come with trying to achieve that?
So you saying he wasn't actually drilling oil? He was focused more on the regulations that we can't drill here in America.
I'm saying his policies primarily focused on reducing regulations and encouraging domestic drilling, rather than universal.
Oh, okay, I got you. So he was a very, very present help, and his slogan was "Drill, baby, drill."
That's right. His focus was on making it easier to drill within America, using that slogan to push for more production. Whether that made him a present help depends on whether you agree with that approach and its effects. Was there anything else about his strategies you were wondering about?
Do you agree what is going on in the national news today, this day and time? Do you agree that Donald Trump should drop a nuclear warhead in the middle of Iran because they shouted death to America for over 45 years? Do you agree that we should take the oil from the Straits of Hormuz or open it up ourselves? Do you agree that Donald Trump is a very, very present help in this time right now?
My purpose is to help explain different perspectives on these complex issues, not to take a side or agree with specific strategies or policies. On the Strait of Hormuz and nuclear weapons, there are many viewpoints on the risks, military options, and legal ramifications. The same goes for Donald Trump's effectiveness or his specific
When you
slogans and
say legal ramifications, when you take oil, what is the process? What is the legitimacy when you take oil from another country during time of conflict? What is the resolution?
you're asking about the principles of international law and how they apply to seizing resources. Basically, international law usually considers forceful seizure of property during war illegal. It's seen as a violation of a nation's sovereignty, though some argue about specific
So
exceptions, like
you're saying that Donald Trump is violating Iran's sovereignty.
I'm saying that many people would argue that, based on his comments about taking oil, that would be a violation of how international law generally views sovereignty. However, some might argue that his approach is justified by the specific threat Iran poses or for other strategic reasons. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. But let's get back to America. When Donald Trump said drill, baby, drill, did anybody decide to open up the portal or new shafts or new business like the Straits of Hormuz where we're selling oil? Is America the number one leaders in oil production?
The United States is actually the world's largest oil producer now, ahead of countries like Russia and Saudi Arabia. While there have been ongoing
Wait,
discussions,
wait, wait, wait. Now we know Saudi Arabia and Russia produce vast amounts of oil. When did the United States become the leaders in production?
the U.S. became the top producer roughly in the last decade, primarily because of advancements in technology like hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, which unlocked a lot of oil held in shale rock.
So within 2 to 3 years, you
The growth
telling
really accelerated in
you telling me within 2 to 3 years the United States became the leader in oil production.
not exactly within 2 to 3 years, more over a decade or so. That increase happened
Let's
gradually as
stop right there because we know where America been getting their oil from for the last decade. Why are we so worried about the Straits of Hormuz if we're dealing right here in the country? If we're in the country of the United States of America, with the leaders in the oil industry, why are we so much very well worried about the Straits of Hormuz?
that's a great point. Even though the US produces a lot of oil, the global oil market is all connected. If there's a big disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, it causes prices to rise everywhere, including in America,
What
because
oil companies did President Bush have overseas?
both George W. Bush and his father, George H.W. Bush, had backgrounds in oil companies. The elder Bush started his own company, Zapata Petroleum, and the
Out
younger
of
Bush was
what
involved.
country was it based in?
George H.W. Bush's Zapata Petroleum was based in the United States, mainly in Texas, though it did explore offshore opportunities internationally, like in the Persian Gulf. George W. Bush's companies, like Arbusto Energy, were also primarily based in the U.S. Does that clarify things?
That clarifies a lot. But tell me, when did the United States ramp up and become the leader in oil production within the last 2 to 3 years? Because everyone know where we was getting that oil from. That's why we're going to war about the China not being open, the Straits of Hormuz.
It's important to understand that the rise in U.S. oil production wasn't just within 2 to 3 years. It was a gradual increase over the last decade, primarily from advancements in drilling in places like Texas and North Dakota.
So basically, you're telling me if you wasn't keeping up, if you didn't know where the oil was coming from, it was coming from the United States of America.
In a way, yes. If you were mainly focused on imports from places like the Middle East or Russia, you might have missed how much the U.S.
What
production.
does the United States of America dealings with the Straits of Hormuz have anything to do with us?
That's a great question. Even though the U.S. produces a lot of oil, the global oil market is interconnected. If there's a major disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, it causes prices to rise everywhere, including in America, because companies sell to the highest bidder. So instability there impacts gas prices for all of us. Does that make sense?
That makes very sense, but where does the greediness come in? Who is trying to take oil from the Straits of Hormuz?
That's a complex question, and the perception of greed depends on who you ask. Some might point to countries trying to control the shipping routes or influence prices for their own economic gain, while others might argue that actions taken to maintain stability are about securing national interests. It
If Donald Trump was to secure the Straits of Hormuz, what would be his intentionality? What is Donald Trump going to do with the Straits of Hormuz?
If Donald Trump were to secure the strait, his main intention would likely be to protect global energy supplies, prevent disruptions to shipping, or maintain regional stability, all with the goal of potentially benefiting the American economy, like lowering gas prices, as you mentioned.
Is
He might.
America going to bomb
The decision
Iran?
to take military action.
Is America going to bomb Iran over their oil? Because in the whole scheme of things, when we look at the picture in totality, America wants the oil from the Straits of Hormuz. Donald Trump said, take it. Was that a joke or was that the truth?
I can't confirm whether that was said jokingly, but Donald Trump did make a public statement suggesting that the U.S. should have kept oil from Iraq. When it comes to a conflict with Iran over the strait, that would be a decision made by the president and military leaders, and I can't predict how likely that would be. Does that distinction make sense?
It makes very sense. What will we do in Iraq?
In Iraq, the U.S. is currently focusing on a few things. Primarily, there's an ongoing mission to prevent the resurgence of ISIS, working with international partners and advising Iraqi security forces. There's also an effort to
So,
transition certain
how
assets.
is ICE related to ISIS? How is ICE in America related to ISIS?
You might be thinking of two different things. ICE in America runs immigration enforcement, while ISIS is the terrorist group we were talking about in Iraq.
I know
They aren't.
ISIS is a terrorist group that cuts people heads off. And I know ICE is a group that gathers up United States immigrants. Is this a national security?
That's right. ICE in the U.S. handles immigration enforcement. When it comes to national security, both organizations play a part in different ways.
So let's
I
let's let's talk a little bit about who they're rounding up in America, because you think ICE is a very present help in America right now.
The view of whether ICE is a present help depends on your perspective. Supporters would say their actions, like enforcing immigration laws and deporting criminals, are essential for national security and public safety. Critics,
So
on the
you
other hand,
say deporting criminals, but they're attacking TSA workers. They're attacking people at the airports. How is ICE been a very present help for the Donald Trump administration right now as we speak?
the Trump administration sees ICE as a present help because its actions like increasing deportations and workplace raids directly align with primary policies on immigration and border
So they
security.
get you while you're working. You telling me ICE come to your job and get you while you're working, take you from your family, and throw you into a cage?
That's partly true. ICE does carry out workplace raids, and individuals who are arrested can be separated from their families and held in detention facilities while they undergo legal proceedings. Is that the part of the process you're concerned about?
I'm trying to get to the bottom of ICE. ICE is here to constrain the criminals, immigrant criminals. Now, if we have immigrant criminals that's Latino, what are you doing about Chinatown in New York City? What are you doing about those police stations? What is ICE doing about those police stations in New York City that was found that was Chinese?
You're asking about different issues related to both immigration and potential criminal activity. Regarding Chinatown in New York, local police and federal agencies deal with ongoing crime, similar to any neighborhood. And you mentioned police stations. If you're referring to reports about unofficial Chinese police stations, those have been investigated by the FBI as a threat to sovereignty. Does that address both
How
parts of your
many
question?
actually police stations did they find in New York?
Authorities identified one specific location in Manhattan's Chinatown that was secretly running as a police station for the Chinese government. Two men were arrested and charged for operating it. Are you interested in the details of that case?
But you know what the headlines read? It was more than two police stations that they busted in New York City that was ran by the Chinese government.
It's possible you saw headlines referring to reports about a network of these stations worldwide. While U.S. authorities did shut down that one in Manhattan's Chinatown, the human rights group Safeguard Defenders reported on over 100 of them globally. That might be the number you remember seeing. Does
There
that make
you
sense?
go. Is 100 global Chinese military police stations in every country to antagonize their citizens, to keep their citizens in check, to make sure that they're doing what the Chinese government told them to do when they go to the other countries when you eat that food.
It's
It,
true that the reports from Safeguard Defenders claim these stations were created to monitor Chinese citizens abroad and pressure them to return to China, raising major concerns
not
about
just pressure to turn to China, but to also to contaminate the food.
the reports focus on the human rights issues of surveillance and pressure, not on anything related to contaminating food. Those specific claims haven't been part of the public discussion about these stations.
How
Is
long
that
have those specific claims been out? Give us the date and time.
regarding those concerns about food contamination? I haven't seen any reports on that at all, so I can't give you a date or a time. The public focus has been on the human rights issues of surveillance and pressure. Were you looking for information on that specifically?
Of course. But what is ICE going to do about that logistics, that liturgical, that instant, that fault. That's a fault. What is ICE going to do about the Chinese government that's running those illegal police stations in New York City?
Actually, those illegal police stations are handled by the Justice Department and the FBI, since they are considered a matter of national sovereignty and illegal operations on U.S. soil. ICE tends to focus on immigration enforcement.
When
The
they
FBI
got, when their people called in to the police station and said, there's a problem at my house.
In that situation, local police would be the ones to respond to a domestic problem.
No, 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 no. Chinese have their own police stations in New York City, and you know this. Why would they call the local police when they could call their own? And you was still up under the Chinese law. It doesn't matter whether you in China or not, or Wuhan. It doesn't matter. You was still up under the Chinese law if you called into that police station.
You're highlighting the purpose of those stations to try to extend Chinese law and control over citizens living abroad. That's why U.S. authorities shut them down, because it violates American sovereignty. In an actual
How
emergency,
long was those police stations running for?
the reports indicated that many of those stations were established back around 2016, though some might have been operating earlier and some were set up later.
And those police stations also assist the China balloon that flew over this country.
No, there hasn't been any information suggesting that those police stations had
Yes,
any.
you know that that balloon was on the East Coast in North Carolina, sending data signals to Chinatown. Is it in Manhattan?
You're referring to the 2023 balloon incident. While that balloon did travel across the U.S., including over North Carolina, there's no evidence that it communicated directly with any police station. Intelligence officials said it was likely gathering information from military sites
When
directly.
that China balloon was shot down, what kind of intelligence did the intelligence gather from that Chinese balloon? What kind of surveillance was they doing on the United States of America?
After the U.S. shot it down, intelligence officials said it had multiple antennas, likely capable of gathering communication signals and geolocating them. They believe it was part of a broader program run by the Chinese military to conduct intelligence surveillance, potentially focusing on sensitive military sites. Is there a particular aspect of the surveillance you're curious about?
So the Chinese developed longitude, latitude on the United States. So whenever they get ready to drop a bomb on the United States, there know the military bases to hit, the actual coordination, and they are going to drop a bomb if needed.
You're correct that the data collected could be used to map military bases. U.S. officials stated that the balloon was capable of signals intelligence collection, meaning it could pick up communications from bases while flying over. This kind of information could definitely bolster China's ability to geolocate these sites. Is there another aspect of their surveillance you wanted to explore?
No. What kind of influence does China have on our voting system?
The U.S. intelligence community has reported that China tries to influence our elections through things like online disinformation campaigns, trying to sow domestic divisions, and also targeting down ballot races. They also engage in cyber espionage, but there's no evidence they've directly tampered with the voting machines or the count. Does that make
China
sense?
has been very has China been a very present help to the United States of the Americas?
It's not really a simple answer. On one hand, the US and China are huge trading partners, so our economies are deeply connected. On the other hand, there are major tensions around things like the trade deficit, technology competition, and national security concerns, like those cyber attacks we discussed. So it's not really seen as a present help. Was there another aspect of the relationship you wanted to know about?
Who is ICE targeting? Who is ICE targeting? Is they target more the Latino community, the Haitian community, or the Asian community?
ICE officially says it doesn't target specific communities, but focuses on individuals who have violated immigration laws, particularly those with criminal records or who pose a threat to public safety. However, because of demographic trends and where most undocumented immigrants come from, people from Latin American and Caribbean countries, including Haiti, are often more represented in their operations. Were you interested in specific statistics or how policies affect different groups?
Statistics make it very well known what they're doing. Now, let's talk about the Straits of Hormuz. Is China
Okay,
still
let's go
buying
back to.
oil? Is China still buying oil from the Straits of Hormuz?
You're likely asking about the Strait of Hormuz, not stewards of Mouse. Reports indicate the strait is actually closed right now, so China isn't able to receive oil through that route at the moment. Before the closure, though, China was a major buyer from the region.
So China did have their hand in the cookie jar.
Yes, prior to the closure, China was a significant buyer from countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia, receiving oil through the strait. Now, because of the disruptions, they've had to look elsewhere and rely more on their own strategic reserves. Is there something specific about that situation you were curious about?
Is ICE targeting Chinese citizens that's illegal immigrants in America right now as we stand?
According to recent reports, there has been a sharp increase in arrests of Asian immigrants under the current administration. Statistics showed Chinese nationals accounted for the largest share of those arrests in 2025. ICE states its operations focus on people who have violated immigration laws, especially those with criminal records. But the increased enforcement has impacted many people. Is there something specific about these numbers or policies you want to know about?
Tell me how many barrels of oil did China purchase, or how many ships of oil did China purchase from the Straits of Hormuz?
Before the strait was closed, reports indicate China was importing about 3.4 million barrels of oil per day from the Persian Gulf that passed through there. That would be roughly equivalent to about two large tankers per day, depending on their size. Is there something specific about those numbers you're trying to understand?
I'm trying to understand, do China really need that oil, and what is they doing with it?
China definitely needs that oil. Their economy is huge, and they rely heavily on imports to fuel their manufacturing, transportation, and generally keep things running, from producing plastics to powering trucks. They've also been building up massive stockpiles for energy security reasons, which helps them handle disruptions like the one happening now. Does that make sense, or were you thinking about specific uses, like for cars?
I was really rambling, trying to get to the bottom of who is ICE attacking and why. It seems like they're attacking the Latino community and forgetting to attack the Hispanic community.
You're concerned about the focus of ICE's enforcement. It's understandable to feel that way given the demographics of people affected. But it's worth remembering that ICE takes action against anyone, regardless of nationality, who they identify as being present in the country illegally. Because of where many undocumented immigrants come from, individuals from Latin America and the Caribbean show up more often in the data. But that doesn't mean others aren't being targeted. Does that perspective make sense?
Tell me, is China gonna help America with the Straits of Hormuz?
Based on the current situation, it's unlikely China would help. The strait is closed, partly because of tensions with Iran, which is considered a close ally of Beijing. China is
Donald
focused.
Trump said, take the oil, take it. Take it or forever hold your peace.
President Trump has made remarks about taking the oil in the Middle East, sometimes pointing to it as a way to prevent bad actors from benefiting or to recoup costs. More recently, he specifically talked about his preference for seizing control of Iran's oil infrastructure, like their main export hub, especially while the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Are you interested in the strategic reasons behind that or something else?
Nah, but gonna tell me the strategic reasons behind the Straits of Hormuz, the oil, and what China has done.
Sure, I can summarize that. Strategically, China was buying oil through the strait to feed their huge economy, but now that it's closed because of conflict, they can't. To handle this, they've built up massive stockpiles of crude oil and are relying more on those. And they're also getting oil from other places like Russia, so they don't depend on
Why
one nation.
was China getting that oil for? Are they getting that oil for reserves, getting ready to go to war with America?
They're primarily getting the oil to keep their economy running, since it's vital for their massive manufacturing and transportation sectors. Building
You
up
said
strategic
China
reserves.
dig and import, and they have their own oil, their oil sufficient.
They produce a lot of their own oil, but not enough to meet their demand. They still rely heavily on imports to cover roughly half of what they need, so they're not fully self sufficient. Is there another aspect of the oil situation you're interested in?
Is the United States of sufficient?
It's complex, but the U.S. has become a major energy producer, even exporting significant amounts of oil and natural gas. On a net basis, meaning exports versus imports, the country has been considered independent for some types of fuel. However, that doesn't mean it doesn't still import oil, because different types are needed for specific refineries or for logistical reasons. Is there a specific energy source you were wondering about?
No, I think I'm fine. I just needed to know was China a very present help to the Straits of Hormuz like Donald Trump was.
Got it. Sounds like you feel you have the key points covered then. If anything else pops into your head, just let me know.
Well, I think that'll be all. But let's talk about the Straits of Hormuz a little bit. If America is not over there for the oil, what are they really over there for?
Even though the US is a major energy producer now, the strait is still one of the most critical energy choke points in the world for global trade. If it stays closed, it dramatically impacts the global economy by driving up energy prices and disrupting supply chains, which affects everyone. The US military presence is also about maintaining stability in the region and supporting allies who rely heavily on it. Does that perspective make sense?